The internet went dead at 2:14 p.m. No warning. No slowdown. Just instant silence. My video call froze mid-sentence. The security cameras went dark. Even my phone dropped to 1 bar of emergency signal before falling into that quiet, empty, no-service state. Out here, on the edge of the rural development, that wasn't normal. That was a problem. I walked outside and followed the line that ran from my house down toward the street. The thick fiber cable that kept my work, my security system, and half my life connected to the outside world. Halfway down the driveway, I saw it. Cleanly cut. Not frayed. Not damaged by weather. Not chewed by animals. Snip. With a tool. I stared at the two ends lying in the dirt like a crime scene and felt my stomach drop. Because I didn't just work from home. I worked on federal contracts, secure systems, encrypted servers, real-time monitoring. My connection going down wasn't an inconvenience. It was a security incident. I pulled out my phone, climbed onto the hood of my truck to get a weak signal, and called the one number I never expected to dial in my life, the emergency IT line for the federal network I was linked to. My connection just went offline, I said. Physical cable damage. How? The technician asked. Someone cut it. There was a pause. Stay on the line. 2 minutes later, I was talking to someone who didn't introduce themselves with a first name. Do not touch the cable, they said. Do not attempt to repair it. Law enforcement has been notified. I didn't call the police, I said. You didn't have to. And that's when the HOA Karen stepped out of her house across the street. Hands on her hips. Sunglasses on. That look people get when they think they've just won something. You're welcome, she called across the road. For what? I asked. For finally dealing with your illegal line, she snapped. The HOA doesn't allow private installations. I had it removed. My blood went cold. You didn't remove it, I said. You cut it. So, she replied. You don't follow the rules. Someone had to. I was still staring at her when the first unmarked black SUV rolled into the street. Then another. Then a third. No sirens. No lights. Just doors opening and men stepping out who were not wearing HOA badges or local police uniforms. They walked straight past me. Straight to her. Ma'am, one of them said calmly, did you tamper with a federally monitored communication line? Her smile vanished. I just... Step away from your house, he said. Right now. And that was when I realized something terrifying. This wasn't an HOA dispute anymore. This was a national security incident. And she had no idea what she'd just cut. The black SUVs didn't slow down when they pulled onto the street. They rolled in smooth and silent, tires crunching gravel, doors opening with the kind of confidence that doesn't belong to anyone who needs permission. The men who stepped out weren't dressed like police. No badges on chains. No radios clipped to their shoulders. Just dark jackets, earpieces, calm faces, and they were walking straight toward Karen's house. She turned to me, eyes wide. What is this? Did you call someone? I told you, I said quietly. You didn't just cut a cable. One of the men raised a hand. Ma'am, step away from the door. Karen laughed nervously. This is ridiculous. I'm in the HOA. That line was illegal. Another man held up a phone, showing a live feed of the severed cable on my driveway. That line is registered to a federally monitored network. You intentionally disabled it. I was enforcing rules, she snapped. You can't just run wires wherever you want. This isn't an HOA issue anymore, he said. This is a federal communications interference incident. Karen took a step back. You're bluffing. The man didn't raise his voice. Ma'am, when a secure line tied to federal infrastructure goes dark without warning, the system flags it. When it's flagged as a physical cut, it triggers a response. She looked at me. I shrugged. Told you. 2 more vehicles pulled up, this time marked local police. They stayed at the curb, watching as the men in black took control. Karen's bravado cracked. I didn't know, she said. I thought it was just his internet. Do you know how many people use that connection? One of them asked. No. Do you know what systems it supports? No. Do you know what happens when it suddenly goes offline? She shook her head, almost in tears now. It gets treated like sabotage. They escorted her down her own front steps. Neighbors began peeking through windows. Phones came out. Curtains twitched. Karen tried to pull away. This is insane. I was just trying to enforce HOA rules. One of the local officers walked up. Ma'am, you admitted to cutting a communication line. That's a felony. Her face went white. A what? A felony, he repeated. You tampered with protected infrastructure. I watched as the reality finally hit her. This wasn't a fine. This wasn't a warning. This wasn't an HOA letter. This was handcuff. They put her in the back of a police car while the men in black took photos of the cut cable, the tools in her garage, and the route she'd taken to my driveway. One of them walked over to me. Did you witness her cutting the line? Yes. Did she admit to it? Yes. He nodded. Good. The repair crew arrived next. Not the usual local internet techs, but a specialized team. They wore badges, not logos. They treated the cable like it was a crime scene. Because it was. Within an hour, my connection was restored. My systems came back online. The security cameras blinked back to life. Karen was still sitting in the back of the cruiser, crying. The HOA president showed up 20 minutes later, red-faced and furious. What is going on? He demanded. Your member cut a federally protected line, an officer replied. She's being charged. She was enforcing HOA rules. Your HOA has no authority over federal infrastructure. He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. Because he knew. The HOA had been harassing me about that cable for months. They'd sent letters, threats, violation notices. All because they didn't like that I had my own line instead of using their shared network. Karen hadn't acted alone. She'd just been the one stupid enough to grab the cutters. The HOA president looked at me like I'd betrayed him. You didn't have to take it this far. I stared back. She cut my cable. You could have called us. You're not in charge of my property, I said. Or my connection. The men in black handed him a card. Your organization is now part of an ongoing federal investigation. The street fell silent. Karen sobbed in the back of the car. The HOA president stood frozen. And the neighbors realized something terrifying. This wasn't a neighborhood dispute anymore. It was a government case, and it had just started. Karen didn't spend long in the back of that cruiser before reality finally hit her. At first, she kept shouting that it was all a misunderstanding, that the HOA had told her the cable was illegal, that she was just helping the neighborhood. But when a federal technician walked past her car carrying a sealed evidence bag with her wire cutters inside, the noise stopped. That was when she realized this wasn't an HOA hearing. This was a criminal investigation. The men in black jackets were still working up and down my driveway, photographing the cut line, measuring distances, and documenting everything with the kind of precision you only see when something serious has happened. One of them came over to me. Your connection was carrying encrypted government traffic, he said quietly. When it went dark, it triggered an automated alert. That's why we're here. So she really, I started. Yes, he nodded. She interfered with protected federal infrastructure. The HOA president was standing nearby, sweating through his expensive polo shirt. This is insane, he muttered. It was just an internet cable. The agent turned and fixed him with a look so calm it was terrifying. No, it was not. The HOA president went silent. Karen was taken out of the cruiser and walked to a different vehicle, a dark SUV with tinted windows. She looked smaller now, no longer the neighborhood tyrant, just a woman realizing she'd crossed a line that didn't move. They read her rights, she cried. Neighbors stood in their yards, watching everything unfold like it was a movie they hadn't paid to see. Phones were everywhere. Some people were whispering. Others were recording. The HOA president tried to leave. A federal agent stopped him with a raised hand. Not so fast. We have questions. I didn't cut anything, he protested. But you ordered enforcement, the agent replied. And that enforcement led to federal interference. The HOA president's face turned gray. They took his phone. They took his tablet. They asked him about HOA communications, emails, and internal messages about my internet line. Who told her to do this? The agent asked. No one, he said too quickly. She acted on her own. Then you won't mind us checking, the agent replied. They already were. Karen was driven away. The street fell into a strange quiet, like everyone was holding their breath after a storm. Later that evening, a federal investigator knocked on my door. We'll need a formal statement, she said. And copies of any HOA notices you received about your internet. I handed her a thick folder. Months of letters, threats, violation notices, all complaining about my private line. She flipped through them slowly. This shows intent, she said. They wanted it removed. What happens now? I asked. She didn't sugarcoat it. Karen will be charged. Cutting a federally monitored line is a serious felony. As for the HOA, we're investigating whether they encouraged or directed her actions. The next day, it exploded. Local news ran the story. HOA member arrested after cutting federal communication line. The HOA's phones didn't stop ringing. Residents wanted answers. Lawyers wanted statements. And the board suddenly realized their little power games had attracted attention they couldn't bully. Karen was charged with federal interference with communications infrastructure. The HOA president was served a subpoena. The board called an emergency meeting. And for the first time, they weren't calling one to find someone over grass height. They were calling one to survive. Because when you mess with someone's cable, you might annoy them. But when you mess with the wrong cable, you wake up the government. And Karen had done exactly that. By the time the tech support rep finally came back on the line, my hands were shaking. Not from fear. From the realization that what just happened wasn't some petty HOA nonsense anymore. It was now a federal incident. Sir, the voice said carefully, your account is flagged under protected infrastructure. I need to escalate this. Protected infrastructure. Those two words slammed into my brain like a freight train. I stared at the severed cable lying in the dirt outside my home. The jagged copper strands glittered in the afternoon sun like exposed nerve. What does that mean? I asked. There was a pause. A longer one this time. It means, the rep said slowly, that your internet line services a secure federal relay. Disrupting it is not considered vandalism. It's considered interference with government communications. I felt my stomach drop. Are you telling me my neighbor just committed a federal crime? Yes, sir. My camera feed caught HOA Karen pacing near her driveway, phone pressed to her ear, clearly mid-rant to someone. Probably the HOA board. Or worse, her Facebook group. She had no idea what she'd just done. The rep transferred me. New voice. Calm. Measured. No customer service fluff. This is the Federal Communications Security Desk. State your name and confirm your address. I did. They already had it. We've been monitoring the signal loss, the man said. Your line carries encrypted traffic routed through a regional defense contractor. We need to know what caused the outage. I swallowed. My neighbor cut the cable. On camera. Can you provide visual confirmation? I flipped the monitor around so the webcam could see the live feed. Karen was now crouched beside the cut line, poking it with the toe of her sneaker like it might come back to life. Send that footage now, he said. I uploaded the clip. 30 seconds passed. Then he spoke again, and this time his voice was different. Sir, remain inside your residence. Do not confront the suspect. Federal authorities are being dispatched. I blinked. Federal? Yes. How long? Another pause. Less than 30 minutes. I leaned back in my chair, stunned. Outside, Karen suddenly stood upright, hands on her hips, looking annoyed that the internet still wasn't back. She pulled out her phone again and started dialing. She had no idea she'd just tripped an invisible wire that led straight into the U.S. government. 10 minutes later, 3 unmarked SUVs rolled into the neighborhood. Not police. Not sheriff. No sirens. No lights. Just black vehicles with tinted windows moving with quiet purpose. Karen froze. She turned slowly as the first SUV stopped right in front of her driveway. 4 men stepped out. Dark suits. No insignia. Earpieces. The kind of posture you don't see in mall cops or HOA board members. One of them spoke. "Ma'am, are you the individual who tampered with federal communications infrastructure at this address?" Karen laughed. Actually laughed. "I'm the HOA president," she said, puffing her chest. "That cable was installed without approval. I was enforcing community standards." The man didn't even blink. "You cut a secure government relay." Silence fell over the street. The second agent pulled out a badge. Department of Defense. Karen's face went pale. I was just. You are being detained pending a federal investigation." Her phone slipped from her hand and hit the driveway. From my window, I watched the strongest woman in the HOA crumble in real time, all because she wanted to prove she was in charge. She wasn't. Not today. And not anymore. Karen didn't scream when they took her. She didn't fight. She just stood there in the middle of her perfect HOA driveway, staring at the black SUVs and the men in suits like the world had suddenly rewritten itself without asking her permission. 2 hours earlier, she had been the queen of the neighborhood, issuing violations, calling meetings, telling people how tall their grass was allowed to be. Now she was sitting in the back of a federal vehicle, hands shaking, lipstick smeared, asking a Defense Department agent if this was really necessary. "It is," he said. The HOA president arrived 20 minutes later, red-faced and furious, still wearing the polo shirt he used for emergency board business. "What is going on?" he demanded. "She was just enforcing HOA policy." One of the agents turned slowly. "Your member interfered with protected federal infrastructure," he said. "That's not an HOA issue. That's a felony." The HOA president opened his mouth, then closed it, because suddenly, for the first time in his life, he wasn't in charge of the room. Karen was escorted inside one of the SUVs. The door closed, and just like that, her reign was over. A federal investigator knocked on my door shortly after. "We'll need your full statement," she said. "And any records of HOA pressure regarding your internet." I handed her everything. Months of letters, warnings, threats, violation notices. All because they didn't like that I had my own connection instead of using their HOA-controlled network. "This establishes motive," she said. "They wanted the line removed." "Even if it wasn't legal," I replied. "Especially if it wasn't legal," she said. The next morning, the story broke. HOA member arrested after cutting federally protected communication line. Karen was charged with federal interference with communications infrastructure. The HOA president was served with a subpoena. The board was ordered to preserve all records. The neighborhood went into meltdown. Residents demanded meetings. Lawyers started sending letters. People who had cheered Karen on for years suddenly pretended they barely knew her. The HOA board tried to distance themselves. She acted alone, they claimed. But their emails told a different story. We found messages about my illegal cable, complaints about how I refused to comply, discussions about forcing him to remove it. Karen hadn't just gone rogue. She'd been encouraged. The federal case didn't just stop with her. It spread. The HOA president was questioned. Board members were interviewed. The management company got dragged in. Within weeks, the HOA's insurance dropped them. Their legal bills skyrocketed. And homeowners realized their dues were now funding a disaster. Karen took a plea deal. Felony conviction. Heavy fines. probation, and most importantly, a permanent record. The HOA quietly removed her from every position she held. Her name disappeared from the website. Her parking spot vanished. Her power evaporated. The board members who had backed her resigned one by one. By the end of the summer, the HOA was effectively dead. No authority, no enforcement, no control, just a cautionary tale. As for me, my internet stayed right where it was, upgraded, secured, protected. I put up a small sign near the cable. Private line, do not touch. No HOA rules. No community standard. Just the law. Sometimes I see Karen driving through the neighborhood, eyes fixed straight ahead, pretending nothing ever happened. But everyone remembers. They remember the day she thought she could cut someone off from the world, and instead woke up the government. All because she wanted to feel powerful. She never was. And now she never will be again.